As this fourth entry into the Bad Boys franchise opens, we're once more thrust into the high-speed driving antics of Mike Lowry, played by Will Smith, with Marcus Burnett, played by Martin Lawrence, screaming for him to slow down, instantly making it clear that this is just going to be a repetition of previous outings, and also kind of making clear that the characters haven't actually changed over the decades, much as how I found the same kind of opening annoying in the third film. After all, surely after decades of working together, Marcus would be used to Mike's driving skills by now. This immediately told me that I was in for quite a rough ride once again. Picking up threads from the third film, for those who can remember anything that happened in that entry, genuinely, I struggled. The plot sees the pair's late captain, Conrad Howard, played by Joe Pantoliano, framed for links to drug cartels, with an investigation by the FBI being made into how far this corruption went. Mike and Marcus seek to clear the name and memory of their captain and find themselves on the run with Lowry's convict son Armando in tow. Cue chasers, action, explosions, and bags of Skittles being mentioned so often that it puts Shazam Fury of the Gods to shame, as well as a side plot about Marcus having a heart attack and being convinced that he can't die, for laughs. There's a slight issue though. This setup would have been fine were it not for the simple fact that the framing of Howard was done via money transfers into an account in his name after he died. A key piece of information that the FBI seem to have overlooked, despite claiming that their evidence is pretty solid. But hey, why let something so trivial get in the way when you're making a dumb film for the masses? Surely nobody would notice oversights in plot. Well, sorry, but as I've said before, if a film assumes that the audience is too dumb to pick up on minor details, then it feels like it's kind of insulting that it wants me to care for what it does after that point. Hence, I very swiftly lost all care for everything that followed after that first 15 minutes. And what followed was a film that played pretty much to template. Frustratingly edited action scenes that would have looked more impressive had they not been chopped and cut up into a hyperactive barrage of elements. We also get gratuitous cameos from characters from other entries in the series, as well as a gratingly forced-in cameo by Michael Bay, which is swiftly followed by a cameo by Carby Lame, the social media personality who was big during lockdown a few years ago for his shrugging videos. Lockdown was a very strange time, and we kind of latched on to pretty much anything that reminded us of some kind of humour in the world. Unfortunately, a few years later, I didn't really find it that amusing a cameo to insert in for no reason at all. There are a couple of positives to take from the film. Firstly, Will Smith proves that he really does have star power, and even when lumbered with weak material, it's hard to not find him engaging and entertaining throughout. In addition, there's a fun segment towards the final act, which pays off the character of Reggie, Marcus's Marine son-in-law slacker, in perhaps the one slick moment of action of the whole 115 minutes. But sadly, those two elements don't make up for the otherwise generic offering, and in no way compensate for the absolute void of talent that is Martin Lawrence. Throughout these films, he's clearly just been hanging on the coattails of Smith, but at this point, those tails have ripped off, and he's just floundering around embarrassingly. As part of a franchise that started fun but then rapidly went downhill, if the options are indeed ride or die, then maybe it's time to take the second option and just let this one go to rest now. The Watched, or The Watchers as it's known internationally, is based on the novel of the same name by A.M. Shine, and stars Dakota Fanning as Mina, an American working in Ireland who's estranged from her twin sister ever since the death of their mother, which Mina blames herself for. When Mina is tasked with delivering a valuable parrot to a zoo, her car breaks down in a vast forest, in which Mina becomes lost, stumbling upon an old woman named Madeline, who leads her to shelter with two others in a building that is known as the Coop. Outside that single-room building, Mina is told creatures reside that hunt at night, and they study the inhabitants of the Coop, leaving them safe so long as they obey 3 rules. But what are these creatures, and what do they really want? The film is directed by Ashana Knight Shyamalan, and is produced by her father, M. Knight, and it's safe to say that the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree. Ishana's style is very similar to her father's, with a very confident use of framing, slow and intriguing mystery, with hints of supernatural, and a tight focus on a small group of characters. However, much like her father's work of recent years, for everything that is good in here, there's an element of over-explaining that kind of dampens the final act, especially when the reveals are so signposted that within the first 20 minutes of the film, I'd worked out pretty much the whole story. But that doesn't really take away from how solid this is as a directorial debut, and how well Ishana uses her cast. Fanning is captivating in the lead role, playing a character that is so divorced from the world around her that it almost feels fitting that she should become lost in a fantasy horror forest. Olwen Fiore, as Madeline, lends strong support in a role that demands sympathy but also caution, with suggestions of ulterior motives that play throughout. While some story elements feel a tad contrived, and the final act does feel somewhat of a letdown after such a strong two-act build, the overall result is a film that I kind of found myself respecting more than enjoying. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it, it's just that you respect the crafting that's gone into it a lot more. Much in the same way that I've felt about M. Night's films of recent years.